One simple massage turned into the moment I couldn't resist. That's the truth. No matter how hard I try to dress it up or excuse what happened, it wasn't planned, and I swear I didn't walk into that night expecting anything. But temptation has a way of creeping in when you least expect it, especially when you're vulnerable, when loneliness has been eating at you quietly for far too long. It all began so innocently. My husband's son had come home for a while, taking a break from his studies and the rush of his young life. He was polite, respectful, and always carried himself with that youthful energy that made me feel older than I wanted to admit. I had known him since he was a teenager, but now he was a man. Taller, stronger, with broad shoulders and a quiet confidence that caught me off guard sometimes. Still, I reminded myself constantly. He was family, he was off limits, and I would never cross that line. That evening, my husband had left on a short business trip, leaving the house unusually quiet. I had been carrying a heavy week, stress weighing down on my back and shoulders. As I sat at the kitchen table rubbing at the knots in my neck, he walked in, his expression concerned. "You look like you're in pain," he said gently, leaning against the doorway. "Just tension," I admitted with a small laugh. "It's nothing new. My back has been killing me lately." He hesitated for a moment, then offered, "Do you want me to help? I've learned a bit about massage from a friend at the gym. I could try." I almost refused, out of instinct, but the ache in my muscles made me pause. It was such a simple offer, such an innocent suggestion. There was no reason to overthink it. "All right," I agreed quietly. "Thank you." I sat on the edge of the couch, and he stood behind me, his hands resting lightly on my shoulders before pressing down gently. His touch was careful at first, as if he was afraid of hurting me, but as his fingers found the knots in my muscles, I couldn't hold back the sigh that escaped my lips. "That feels amazing," I murmured, closing my eyes. He chuckled softly. "I'll take that as a compliment. Just tell me if I press too hard." The room was silent except for the sound of my breathing and the occasional shift of his hands as he worked down my shoulders and back. His touch grew more confident, stronger, kneading away the tension I had been carrying for days. My body relaxed under his hands in a way it hadn't in years, and with that release came something unexpected. Awareness. Awareness of how close he was, of the warmth of his body behind me, of the strength in his hands and the way my skin tingled beneath his touch. I tried to push the thought away, but it lingered, pulsing quietly inside me. My heart began to beat faster, and suddenly I was no longer thinking only about the massage. When his hand slid a little lower, along the curve of my back, my breath caught. He noticed, pausing for just a moment before continuing, slower this time. I told myself it was nothing, that he was just helping me, but the heat spreading through me told a different story. "Is this okay?" he asked quietly, his voice lower now, almost uncertain. "Yes," I whispered before I could stop myself. "Don't stop." Those two words seemed to change everything. His hands grew bolder, lingering longer with each press, his touch almost caressing now. My body responded in ways I hadn't felt in years. Weakness in my knees, shivers down my spine, a hunger I thought I had buried deep. I tilted my head slightly, giving in to the sensations, and in that moment, the line between right and wrong blurred. He leaned closer, his breath brushing against the side of my neck. My eyes fluttered open, and for a second we were frozen in that charged silence, both of us knowing what was happening but neither daring to move. And then, without thinking, I turned my head slightly and his lips grazed my skin. It was the smallest touch, but it ignited something uncontrollable. I gasped softly, and he pulled back, eyes wide, as though he had crossed a boundary he couldn't take back. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice shaking. But I couldn't let him apologize. Not when my whole body was aching for more. I reached back, placing my hand over his, and whispered, "Don't." That was all it took. He leaned in again, this time pressing his lips fully against my neck, and the sensation sent sparks racing through me. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the warmth flooding my veins. His hands slipped around me, drawing me closer, and when I finally turned to face him, our lips met in a kiss that was both hesitant and desperate. It was unlike anything I had felt in years. Raw, unfiltered, filled with hunger but also with a strange tenderness. He kissed me as though I was the only thing that mattered in that moment, as though he had been waiting for this without ever daring to admit it. My heart pounded as I melted into him, my hands clutching at his shirt, pulling him closer. The world outside vanished. There was no house, no marriage, no consequences. There was only the heat between us, the fire that had been lit by a simple touch and was now consuming everything in its path. We broke apart only long enough to breathe, our foreheads pressed together, our breaths mingling. His eyes searched mine, filled with questions, fear, and desire all at once. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yes," I breathed, my answer immediate, undeniable. "I can't resist this." And then we were lost again, our mouths colliding in a kiss that tasted of longing and surrender. His hands roamed over me, exploring with both caution and hunger, while my own traced the lines of his body, memorizing the strength beneath my fingertips. Every second felt forbidden, dangerous, but also intoxicatingly alive. We didn't rush. We savored every touch, every kiss, every whispered confession that slipped out in the heat of the moment. He admitted he had admired me quietly for so long that he never thought something like this could happen. I confessed how lonely I had been, how much I had craved feeling wanted again. Our words bound us together just as tightly as our bodies did, weaving a secret that neither of us could undo. The hours melted away in that haze of passion and discovery. By the time exhaustion caught up with us, I found myself lying in his arms, my head resting on his chest, listening to the rapid beat of his heart. He held me tightly, as if afraid to let go, and I clung to him in return, knowing that what had happened could never be spoken of, yet also knowing I would never forget it. As dawn crept through the curtains, guilt began to stir at the edges of my mind, but it couldn't drown out the truth pulsing through me. For the first time in years, I felt alive. I felt desired. I felt like a woman again, not just someone going through the motions of a life that had long lost its spark. One simple massage had turned into so much more, into a moment that changed everything. And though I knew the weight of what we had done, though I knew the risks and the consequences, I also knew that I couldn't take it back. I didn't want to. Because for that one night in his arms, I had found something I had been missing for far too long.